News with Mitsumi Takahashi.
Good evening. Quebec's Premier-designate held her first news conference this afternoon. Christine Frechette was elected the new leader of the CAQ yesterday, and on Wednesday she will be sworn in as Premier. Now, Caroline, Frechette has a lot to do and not a lot of time.
That's right, Mitsumi. She says it is an honor and a privilege to take on this role, and she does so with a deep sense of responsibility, but she acknowledged the challenge ahead of her. Frechette says she's already at work, though, on some of her first priorities. Those include tackling the rising cost of living and helping younger generations of Quebecers to buy their first homes. She won the leadership with nearly 58% of the vote, beating out Bernard Drainville, who got just over 42%. And Frechette now becomes the second woman to become Premier of Quebec after Pauline Marois. She was Deputy Chief of Staff for Jean-François Lisée when he was the International Relations Minister in Pauline Marois' minority government, and Drainville was the PQ minister responsible for introducing the Quebec Charter of Values, which she then left the PQ over to join the CAQ in 2022. So the question now is how she'll try to mend fences with Drainville and unite the party after a tough leadership race. Frechette says she and Drainville have already spoken, and he has no problem accepting her victory, and they are expected to meet tonight to discuss unifying the party. Here now is Christine Frechette and how she plans to lead the CAQ.
I think I have my own style, my own personality, and right from there you can have a different style that is being seen by Quebecers. My decisions will not be the same, I suppose, but it is to Quebecers to decide what is the exact nature of the change I'm bringing. I'm from another generation, Generation X. I'm a woman. We haven't had so many women, only before. We had Pauline Marois, and this comes with a certain number of change for Quebecers, but for them to decide.
Caroline Frechette was also asked about her plans for Bill 1, that's the proposed Quebec Constitution.
Yeah, she was asked about that right off the bat. It was one of the first questions she was asked, and she says it is an important legislative text with some changes that have already been made, but she will allow the parliamentary hearings on it to proceed. When she was asked if she would invoke closure on the bill, she says it is not a measure she would consider, as she says it needs a certain amount of support. And Frechette, as you mentioned, is expected to be sworn in on Wednesday. She will become the 33rd Quebec Premier. Mitsumi.
Thanks very much, Caroline. 3 federal by-elections are underway today. 2 of them are in Ontario. 1 is here in Quebec. Mike Lecouture looks at what's at stake.
For some people voting in today's by-elections, federal politics is about the person they want to send to Ottawa.
She knows what the Scarborough Southwest needs. It's not like somebody that's coming in from another area. So it's very important that we have somebody representing our needs.
That candidate is the former deputy leader of the Ontario NDP, who's now running for the Liberals.
The Liberal Party of Canada is a big tent where I see myself voicing my concerns of the people of Scarborough Southwest.
Now, the new leader of the federal NDP is questioning the size of that big tent, given the Liberals welcomed 5 opposition MPs in as many months, including the latest, who held social conservative views.
I think the Liberal tent is stretched so far now that the fabric must be, I don't know, is it spandex? It is something very stretchy when you can encompass Marilyn Gladu in a caucus with progressives in the Liberal Party.
Now, for some voters, the issues are more important than the politics around them.
Affordability, social issues, things that include everybody, cost of living.
Key issues for all parties, but on Parliament Hill, the Conservatives were criticizing how the Liberals set themselves up to secure a majority.
The government seems committed to their strategy of backroom deals.
Now, 2 of the 3 by-elections are taking place in ridings that have historically been Liberal strongholds, meaning Prime Minister Carney is likely to get a majority less than a year after voters handed him a minority mandate. Mike Lecouture, CTV News, Ottawa.
Matt Gilmore has been following the by-election in Terrebonne. And Matt, a lot less riding on this race, but it's still an interesting one.
Yeah, very dramatic, full of drama. The only reason why we're here, Mitsumi, is because the Supreme Court of Canada actually threw out the general election results that from last fall and ordered a by-election. You'll remember that that race between the Liberals and the Bloc Québécois was decided by just one single vote, the Liberals coming out on top. It was then learned later that there had been at least one Bloc voter who had her mail-in ballot returned because of a clerical error that Elections Canada had made. They challenged the results. The Supreme Court took the case and decided that it would be thrown out, and here we are. Now, for the Liberals, unless something very dramatic happens in Toronto tonight, this by-election won't be the deciding factor between whether they get a majority or not, but they are still going to want as many votes and seats as possible, and so Mark Carney was here last week going door to door and trying to secure this seat as well. For the Bloc, they will be desperate to steal a seat away from Carney and show him that he can't take Quebec voters for granted. They'll also be desperate to bring their candidate back to Ottawa. Nathalie Sinclair-Desgagnés held this seat from 2021 to 2025. Now, for the voters, though, there is a little bit of fatigue setting in this riding, including a provincial by-election last year. This will be the third time that voters go to the polls in just 12 months, and there is something new for voters to contend with as well. Instead of putting an X or a check mark next to a name of a candidate on the ballot, this time voters are being asked to write in a candidate's name, and that's because this riding has been targeted by the group called Longest Ballot Collective. They're protesting against the first past the post system, and they've tried to add as many names as possible. This ballot has 48 names on it, most of them independent. Here's how some Terrebonne voters reacted to seeing that long ballot today.
I think, again, it's a little bit excessive. They should have probably shortened it a little bit, but again, everybody has a choice. Everybody has a right to participate, and we'll see what happens.
Très différent de ce qu'on a dessus d'avance. Dans le passé, ça allait super bien. Comme tu dis que voilà.
Elections Canada has said that this process could add a little bit of time to the counting process, and it could mean that the results are only available a little bit later in the evening tonight. We'll have those results for you later. The polls close in Terrebonne at 8:30. Mitsumi.
Thanks very much, Matt. And that's Matt Gilmore in Terrebonne. And CTV News will have full coverage of the 3 federal by-election results, hosted by Chief Anchor Omar Sachedina and Chief Political Correspondent Vashi Capellos. That begins at 7 o'clock on CTV News Channel and will stream on ctvnews.ca and on Crave. A third Walmart will be closing in the coming weeks in the Montreal area. The store in Dorval Gardens Mall will close in July. Workers have been offered positions at other Walmart stores. Stores in Pointe-aux-Trembles and Côte-des-Neiges will also be closing. Walmart operates more than 70 stores across Quebec and employs more than 12,000 people. And a third top executive is leaving the Montreal Port Authority. Today it was Chief Financial Officer Albin Fournier. He says he is leaving for a new job in the private sector. 10 days ago, the port CEO, Julie Gascon, quit suddenly with no explanation. Another executive quit last month. And there has been no explanation from the port for any of the departures. The latest numbers on cancer rates is out. The news is not good for Quebec. Rates of cancer and mortality rates are expected to fall slightly. Despite that, cancer is still the leading cause of death in Canada. And Quebec has the highest rates in the country. Here's Angela McKenzie.
Throughout the country, cancer rates and mortality appear to be falling slightly. That's according to new projections for 2026 from the Canadian Medical Association Journal. Oncologist and hematologist Dr. Denis Soulière says better treatments and screening are lowering mortality rates for certain cancers.
Those types of screening are translating into an earlier diagnosis and therefore a higher likelihood of not dying from this disease.
Still, cancer continues to be the leading cause of death in Canada. This year, more than 250,000 people will be diagnosed with cancer and nearly 90,000 will die from it. The most commonly diagnosed cancers are lung, breast, prostate, and colorectal. Dr. Soulière notes there has been a large increase in throat cancer linked to the HPV virus.
For a young man, we've seen almost an epidemic of this happening over the last 2 decades. So there will hopefully be a reduction in number of cases linked to the vaccination.
And with more young people being diagnosed with breast and colorectal cancer, there have been calls to reduce the screening age for both. Barry Stein with Colorectal Cancer Canada says Quebec still doesn't have a proper screening program in line with the rest of the country.
The obligation is on the individual to go and request that test, whereas in all the other provinces and territories, you're sent an invitation to participate in the screening program.
The study also found Quebec has higher cancer rates than the rest of Canada. However, the data available for Quebec only goes back to 2017 and 2022 everywhere else. Still, Dr. Soulière says it's the first time Quebec's data can be adequately compared with the rest of the country.
Why are we seeing more types of cancer in Quebec, and what would be the intervention to make sure that this level goes down?
Questions he'd like to see studied in the years to come to get a clearer picture of what's happening in Quebec. Angela McKenzie, CTV News.
A student in Montreal has found a way to combine his love of baseball and of math. Last month, he competed on the world stage. He made Canadian history. Here's Sweet Arasi.
Involves players' analytics to predict an outcome of a baseball game.
It's a board game that combines baseball and math.
6 and 3, which is 6 and 3, 18.
And from a Harley Musgrave, those just happen to be his 2 favorite things.
I like timesing, dividing. I like fractions.
It all started when the 10-year-old boy and his father were watching a baseball game at home. That's when a commercial for a board game called MLB Player STEM League caught their eye. It's a baseball-inspired game where players use real MLB statistics to calculate the moves of their roster. Months later, they found out the league was holding its worldwide championships in Miami. Musgrave sent in a video application and got in, becoming the first Canadian ever to compete.
Feels pretty awesome to be like the first Canadian, like to represent the whole country like for the first time in this game.
His dad couldn't wait to share the news.
He was actually in class when I got it, so I actually came to the school to let him know. I was pretty much in tears.
Last month, Musgrave went up against 25 other players. He battled his way to the semifinals before losing by just 1 point. But he didn't go home empty-handed.
So I won the sportsmanship award.
It was a trip full of memories. He met some real-life MLB players, watched the World Baseball Classic quarterfinal, and left with a shirt and ball signed by the pros. Back home, he continues to sharpen his skills.
I'm probably going to go again next year.
And by his calculations, he may be right. Sweet Arasi, CTV News.
Restaurant ratings are not new. Well, now there is a new list. It ranks the best restaurant washrooms in Montreal. Here's Christine Long.
The people who put the tissue in the bathrooms, Cashmere, came up with the top 3 most beautiful restaurant bathrooms in Montreal. Rotisserie La Lune, Marcus Restaurant and Lounge, plus Ile-de-France on the 9th floor at the Eaton Centre.
We are absolutely honored to be recognized.
The judging was by Elise Tessier and the Testé team, who have been visiting and evaluating Montreal restaurants for 12 years.
To find the best places, quality of the food, service, ambiance, decor, price point, uniqueness of the address.
Tessier says the bathroom has always been part of their resto guidelines, and she has visited every single one.
A little play on what we do, in the sense that I had an analysis grid for every bathroom.
She says the bathroom at Ile-de-France is restored to Art Deco beauty that Mrs. Eaton herself would approve of. Plus, The view is exceptional, says Marco Gucciardi.
There is a marketing aspect to having nice washrooms. It's the only time that the guest is alone with your brand.
At Rotisserie La Lune, Morgane Musinski says the warm wood walls are a theme throughout the space.
The design is really cozy and comfy. It's really more like a golden, dark red color. So it's really timeless and really elegant.
Musinski adds that they're on a lot of best of lists, but this is a first.
We are really proud because we put the same effort we put in the restaurant into the experience in the bathroom.
Bathrooms were evaluated based on 7 criteria and received points for originality, layout, and of course, lighting. Flattering lighting seems to inspire selfies.
More people are going to the bathroom. They take selfies in the bathroom. It's part of the experience. The bathrooms that were chosen are stunning.
They are lovely, and it's always a nice shot. So why not?
The bathrooms is not an afterthought. It's part of the guest journey.
A new way to look at Quebec restaurants, recognized by a Made in Quebec product. Christine Long, CTV News.
And coming up, Donald Trump issues more threats.
Absolutely, we're escalating the conflict. And that is really the intent, escalation. But to what point?
And the U.S. has begun a military blockade of Iranian oil. And a call for more Canadians to do more to help Cuba. The U.S. began its blockade of the Strait of Hormuz at 10 this morning. Donald Trump warned any Iranian ships caught approaching the blockade would be, quote, immediately eliminated. The markets were quick to react. Annie Bergeron-Oliver reports.
Oil prices surged Monday above $100 a barrel as U.S. Navy ships began blocking the Strait of Hormuz, stopping all vessels from entering or exiting Iranian ports.
We can't let a country blackmail or extort the world, because that's what they're doing.
Since the war began, Iran has heavily restricted access to the Strait of Hormuz, a key waterway through which 20% of traded oil normally passes. President Donald Trump says the U.S. doesn't need the strait and that his latest move in the region will get Iran back to the negotiating table after talks broke down this weekend over Iran's refusal to end its nuclear program.
Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. And we agreed to a lot of things, but they didn't agree to that. And I think they will agree to it. I'm almost sure of it. In fact, I am sure of it. If they don't agree, there's no deal.
The new U.S. blockade seeks to starve Iran of an estimated $200 million a day in oil reserves, a form of economic pressure experts say could backfire. Iran has threatened to strike any vessel that it believes is violating the 2-week ceasefire.
Absolutely, we're escalating the conflict. And that is really the intent, escalation. But to what point?
Experts say the blockade likely goes against international law, and several U.S. allies, including Spain, France, Turkey, and the UK, have criticized Trump's move.
My guide from the start of this conflict has always been our national interest. That's why we stayed out of the war and why we continue to stay out of the war.
Economists say Canadians can expect to see higher inflation over the coming months, even if this fight over the strait is somehow solved within days. Annie Bergeron-Oliver, CTV News, Ottawa.
Israeli forces are now deeper inside southern Lebanon, according to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Earlier today, rescuers were trying to clear debris from an Israeli airstrike in the city of Tyre. According to reports, Israeli troops launched the attack to seize the town of Bint Jbeil from Hezbollah fighters. This comes on the eve of talks between Israel and Lebanese government envoys in Washington. And Pope Leo has responded to the criticism from Donald Trump. Trump took issue over Pope Leo's comments against the war in Iran. The Pope says he will continue to speak out.
I don't want to get into a debate with him. I don't think that the message of the gospel is meant to be abused in the way that some people are doing. And I will continue to speak out loudly. Too many people are suffering in the world today. Too many innocent people are being killed. And I think someone has to stand up and say, there's a better way to do this.
Trump lashed out at the Pope, saying he should stop catering to what Trump called the radical left and focus on being a pope, not a politician. It's been more than 2 months since the major Canadian airline suspended flights to Cuba. The country is struggling under the U.S. oil blockade. One local man says it's time Canadians do more to help. Here's Stéphane Giroux.
Christian Lemire went to Cuba in December to spend time with his Cuban girlfriend. He's worried about her and the larger community he's grown attached to.
They need to find something to eat every day, to find some water, to find some all necessary for living.
Lemire discovered Cuba as a tourist destination, but now sees the country facing constant shortages since former ally Venezuela was forced to stop providing supplies. He's launched a personal online initiative to get Canadians to board a weekly charter flight from Montreal, strictly to bring money and basic supplies.
They need really us. I asked for everybody on Facebook to just make sure they have enough people for one plane, but maybe for more than that, maybe once a week.
His initiative isn't backed by the government nor registered humanitarian groups. He says he just wants to do something, anything to help.
Bring money down there and buy some food down there because they have food. They really have food, but they don't have money for buy it. And it's more easier bringing some money to go there.
Lemire says a network of locals will make sure that the aid money goes straight to those who need it. Canada currently advises against any trips to Cuba. The United States has signaled it could intervene militarily at any moment to topple the regime. All Lemire wants to do is make sure nobody goes hungry during these uncertain times. Stéphane Giroux, CTV News.
And coming up, the seasons are changing.
I sort of began with the sense that, summers feel different than they did when I was a kid.
They are different, and so is the spring and the fall. And we look at the new technology that is helping to solve cold cases. The Premier Designate of Quebec will be sworn in on Wednesday. Christine Fréchette has a huge task ahead of her if she is to keep the party alive. Salim Idrissi is a political analyst. Hi, Salim.
Hi, Matsui.
So if we saw one thing during the campaign, we saw how divided this party is. What is she going to have to do with Bernard Draville and his supporters to unite this party?
Well, indeed, Christine Fréchette will absolutely need to unify her party and, following a leadership race which always leaves some scars. So to do so, I think she will need to give Bernard Draville and his supporters a prominent place within her cabinet. She also needs to demonstrate that even though she represents the economic wing of the CAQ, she is capable of working with its nationalist and identity-driven wing.
Yeah, because you're right. I mean, she's going to have to show that this is a new government. What about her cabinet, though? Because how is she going to manage that?
Well, for her cabinet, she will likely keep some tried and true figures where she does not want to signal some major changes. But where she aims and stand out, she will need fresh blood, either from within the caucus or by appointing non-elected ministers.
And what about the other parties, Salim? What does her win mean for the PQ, the Liberals, the Conservatives?
For the PQ, it's the best case scenario, as it will benefit from the split vote between Milliard and Fréchette, whose profiles, are quite similar in many aspects, at least. For the Liberals, it's less good news because it will be more challenging for them to differentiate themselves given these similarities. And for the Conservatives, this is quite a good news. As the parties, as the CAQ's right-wing base is very keen to vote for Éric Duhaime.
Because there are reports that the other parties are courting CAQ members who are unhappy with Fréchette's win. I mean, after all, the CAQ is a coalition, right? So do you see people returning to their former parties then, to the PQ, to the Conservatives?
In the voters, probably. Within the CAQ, within the caucus, the CAQ caucus, I don't think so. But within the members of the CAQ, the membership of the CAQ, yeah, you could probably see some people move to the Conservatives.
So Christine Fréchette has 5 weeks in the National Assembly to make her mark. What do you expect her priorities to be?
She said earlier in a press conference that she wanted to withdraw the bienvenue taxes to give access to property. There are some other measures that she wants to put in place quite rapidly. I think she's going also to call back the Constitution, the bill on the Constitution. But I think at this point, what she will need to do is to balance what she promised during her leadership campaign and what is expected from her and from Drainville's team.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, she was elected with 9,000 members of the CAQ. That's not a huge mandate to be running the entire province of Quebec, right? I mean, there's a limit to how much she can do.
Yeah, that's correct. I don't think she will start any kind of, revolution on major files. She's just going to draw what she's going to promise in the upcoming electoral campaign that is taking place this fall.
Okay. Thank you very much for this, Salim.
Thank you.
Forensic technology has made incredible advances in the past few years. Recently, a lab in Quebec was able to identify the remains of an Ontario woman. Her remains were found 47 years ago. Rachel Law has more on the new technology and the people responsible for identifying the remains.
This is a very specific dental feature here.
This person has been dead since at least 1998. It's Dr. Corinne Danjou's job to find out who they are.
That's where I will look at all of our missing persons in my database.
She's a forensic odontologist working to identify human remains as part of a team at Quebec's Laboratoire de Sciences Judiciaires et de Médecine Légale, or the LSJML.
Sometimes what I work with is a smiling picture.
Danjou was the one who first discovered a link between a set of remains and Pamela Harvey, who went missing on Christmas Day in 1978. Her remains had been sitting at the lab for 46 years, waiting for advances in forensics and DNA.
Back in the 1970s, we didn't even know DNA would be something at one point, right? So techniques that were used back then were not in mind of maybe someday something will happen. Small details matter.
This binder is full of missing people and unidentified remains. 304 potential matches waiting to be made.
Well, here on the left side here, this is the radiograph that were taken in postmortem, so on the deceased person.
We weren't allowed to film any real remains out of respect for the families.
See here, I see a little something like that. There's something different in the alignment of the teeth.
We're standing in the first forensics lab ever in North America. It was founded in 1914 and brings together a host of scientific expertise: toxicology, DNA, pathology, anthropology, and more. The Forensic Identification Unit was created in 2023 with the Coroner's Office, the SQ, and many other police forces. The goal, to identify as many Jane and John Does as possible.
And we have now 29 cases that have been identified since, which is quite a bit.
Another 7 to 9 are pending confirmation, including one Danjou says she discovered while preparing for our interview.
And I was organizing it for you, and I'm like, oh, wait a second.
She admits the team will probably never identify every set of remains that comes into their lab. All the same, she says she'll never stop trying.
You know, there's cases that will remain with us much longer, but at the same time, it's you know, the purpose of doing it is giving answers to their family, and as much as it can be upsetting sometimes, or it can be sad situations, the deceased deserve all of our attention.
Even if it takes decades. Rachel Lau, CTV News.
Weather brought to you by Gratianscaf. Second pair is a gift event including designer frames. A second pair free for a limited time.
Well, hopefully you enjoyed the sunshine last weekend because it is looking like a gloomy week. That said, we are also looking at warming temperatures. And we are getting a taste of that today already. Right now, it's almost 7 p.m. and we're seeing a temperature of 14 degrees in both Mirabel and Montreal. That is just sitting 1 degree cooler than our expected high of 15 degrees for today. Now, we did hit that 15 degrees just moments ago, pointing out as well that our normal numbers have once again moved up. So our normal daytime high is now sitting at 11. Our normal overnight low now sitting at 1. And all that said, we are looking at a pretty warm night tonight. So expecting to see a low of 7 degrees this evening. That's along with mainly cloudy skies. As we get toward the middle of the day tomorrow, we're expecting those cloudy skies to shift over to rain. We have 6 degrees as our wake-up temperature before we move up to an expected high of +9 for the day tomorrow. But looking more closely at this rain, our futurecast is showing us a system coming over from the west, hitting the Montreal area at about 11 a.m. We're also seeing some regions where there's yellow, orange, and even some red. Of course, that indicates some heavier rain. We're expecting things to intensify for the Montreal area at around 1 p.m. Clear out by about 6 for Montreal. We see the same system passing through Quebec City. That should push eastward and clear Quebec City by about 8 or 9 p.m. tomorrow. So you'll want to, of course, have your rain gear with you while you're headed out. And there is going to be more rain where that came from again over the course of the rest of this week. On Wednesday, we're looking at a lighter day, so roughly 2 millimeters for the Montreal area. We're seeing as much as 14 on Thursday. But of course, again, seeing these warming temperatures ranging from 10 degrees all the way up until 20 degrees on Saturday. So get ready for some mixed weather.
The seasons in British Columbia are shifting, and it's not the only province to notice that change. It appears the summers are starting sooner and lasting longer. Andrew Johnson has more.
A lot of people look forward to summer when it starts to look like this.
I do personally because I do like the warm weather.
We know summers are getting hotter, but new research led by the University of British Columbia shows they're also starting sooner and ending later.
I sort of began with the sense that, like, summers feel different than they did when I was a kid. This is my perception. Can we actually look at the data and see if this is true?
They dug into temperature data between 1990 and 2023, focusing on the number of days that reached average warmth for the hottest part of the year.
The number of summer weather days are increasing in length 1.5 times faster since 1990 than before that.
The study finds summer weather is lengthening fastest in Sydney, Australia, adding 15 days per decade. Toronto summers are expanding by 8 days per decade. In Bellingham, Washington, just outside Vancouver, each decade's summer is growing by 6 days.
If you're someone who also has a sense that summer arrives more quickly, you're not wrong about that either. We found that, like, the shoulder seasons are shrinking. So the time from spring to summer and summer to fall is becoming much more abrupt, those transitions.
He says that could throw off cyclical transitions, such as when flowers bloom and pollinators become active, the speed of snowmelt, and flood risk. More examples of a changing climate on the minds of many students on the UBC campus.
I'm really concerned.
It is a little bit worrying to see the kind of state that we're in if we don't take any action right now.
Researchers say now is the time to adapt to the new patterns, which are contributing to everything from more wildfires to increased energy demand for cooling off. Andrew Johnson, CTV News, Vancouver.
And lobster season in Nova Scotia is off to a slow start. Fishermen are worried about ocean temperatures, and that's just part of a larger problem. Paul Hollingsworth reports.
Lobster season is underway off Nova Scotia's eastern shore. This week, Jamie Osborne laid 250 traps. Osborne worries the water temperature in the North Atlantic is still too low for good fishing.
The catch is not very good. Everybody will tell you the same thing.
A bad catch results in low supply, which usually increases the price of lobster. This week, it's selling for as high as $16 a pound. This food expert says there are other issues casting a dark cloud over the lobster industry.
It's beyond problematic.
The war with Iran continues to drive up global fuel prices. Fuel surcharges are now adding to the overall cost of transportation.
An initial impact of higher freight rates by the range of 25 to 30%.
The lobster industry was hoping for smooth sailing after the removal of China's 25% tariff. According to Stuart Lamont, the financial landscape is now arguably getting worse.
Trucking, transportation, packaging, there's very little that hasn't been negatively impacted in the last months to 6 weeks.
Those added fees may drive up prices even higher. Lobster is Nova Scotia's top seafood export. For those who work in the industry, when it comes to covering expenses, the challenge is how much to charge without charging too much and risk turning off customers.
We've had prices in recent years which weren't acceptable to the harvesting sector.
Sylvain Charlebois says because lobster is a specialty item, people around the world will still likely pay a lot to get it.
The problem are costs for harvesters. That's the problem.
He fears those who work at sea and catch lobster will take the biggest financial hit because of the high cost of fuel. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Eastern Passage, Nova Scotia.
And coming up, she is a military reservist.
When you exit a train or come up the stairs and you hear this beautiful playing, it lifts the heart.
And she has good reason to be making the music.
Menswear provided by Ernest. Elevate your style with Ernest. Your Health, brought to you by Gratianscap's second pair is a gift event including designer frames. A second pair free for a limited time.
GLP-1 drugs have transformed weight loss and diabetes treatment. Now a new study links one type of the drug with lower risks for heart and kidney damage. Mandy Gator has more on that.
For many who have struggled with obesity, GLP-1 drugs have emerged as a very effective treatment to help lower the number on the scale.
We're now moving from the early first-generation drugs. We're moving forward into even more advanced drugs that have more effective weight loss.
Dr. Steve Nissen with Cleveland Clinic is senior author of a study that compared two types of popular GLP-1 medications, dulaglutide and tirzepatide, and their effects on major health complications, including heart attack, stroke, coronary procedures, heart failure, kidney failure, and all causes of death.
Tirzepatide was substantially better than the first-generation drugs.
Nissen says tirzepatide, a next-generation drug, targets two gut hormones instead of one, which signals the brain to reduce appetite, slowing digestion, and helping to avoid spiking blood sugar after meals. He says the analysis showed it was linked to lower risk of heart and kidney damage.
There was about a 16% lower risk of all of the 6 endpoints pooled together, but very impressively, there was also a 16% reduction in death due to all causes.
With tirzepatide, Nissen says gastrointestinal side effects were more common, while other adverse events were similar between the two medications. For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
Britney Spears has entered rehab. She was arrested on suspicion of driving under the influence last month. Her representative says she voluntarily checked herself into a treatment facility. Spears is now 44 years old. She has a court date in 3 weeks for the DUI charge.
Business News brought to you by Au Vieux de Louvre, where memories and meals come together.
The Middle East peace talks collapsed on the weekend. Oil stocks were expected to rise today, and they did. Morella Fernandez has more.
The price of oil spiked back up again today, with the U.S. now moving to block the Strait of Hormuz. West Texas Intermediate shot up to $103 a barrel this morning before settling back to under $98 by the end of the trading day. Traffic through the key shipping route has dramatically slowed down after Donald Trump threatened to eliminate Iranian ships that come close to the U.S. blockade. Here are the closing numbers for the day. The Canadian dollar is up to 72.53. West Texas Intermediate is up to 97.84. Western Canadian Select is down to 72.40. And the TSX gained 183 points today. Those are your business headlines. I'm Morella Fernandez.
CF Montreal fired its head coach Marco Donadel and his 2 assistants this weekend. Montreal lost their home opener on Saturday to the Philadelphia Union. It was their 6th loss in 7 games so far this season. Donadel joined the team just over a year ago. He was the team's 11th head coach since the club joined the MLS in 2012.
Ultimately, we want to have longevity. We want to find the right person to be with us long term. We want to create a long-term project with someone. We feel as though we have everything to be able to build something long term. It's about finding the right person.
Philippe Huelfroy will replace Donadel on an interim basis. And Nick Suzuki made history last night during the Canadiens' 4-1 win over the Islanders. Suzuki had a goal and an assist, and he made the 100-point mark for the season. He is the first Canadian to do so in 40 years. He's the 5th player in team history to do it, and the first captain to do it. Roy McIlroy has become the first back-to-back winner at the Masters since Tiger Woods in 2002.
Rory is a rare repeat winner at Augusta.
McIlroy finished 1 stroke ahead of Scottie Scheffler to win his 6th major. The top Canadian was Nick Taylor. He tied for 41st place. There is growing opposition to plans for new parking meters along a section of Sherbrooke. In Caroline, there's a Borough Council meeting tonight.
Yes, this is the first Borough Council meeting in Côte-des-Neiges NDG since a motion was adopted by a majority of the borough's councillors last month to install 447 parking meters on Sherbrooke Street and several streets that cross Sherbrooke. Residents who park on those streets say they were never consulted and began a petition against them, and they'll be at the council meeting tonight to make their feelings known. Matt Gilmore will be reporting for us from the Terrebonne by-election tonight, and today is Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Remembrance Day. There will be an event at the Holocaust Memorial Museum in Montreal tonight, and we will hear about the meaning of the day and why it's still so important to still hear from survivors. That's all at 11:30 tonight. Mitsumi?
Thanks very much, Caroline.
Stay with us. We've got another full night of great shows for you right here tonight on CTV.
A military veteran turned musician is entertaining commuters in Toronto's subway system. Mike Walker has more.
Amid the hustle and bustle of a busy subway station, the classic sounds of Alice Lee's music pierces through the noise.
I think it's really important to me that we make music something that's free and accessible. I think music can transform public spaces.
The musician, who was also a lieutenant in the reserves for the Canadian Armed Forces, started busking at TTC stations 9 years ago. combining her two passions, music and giving back.
I first started this as a charity project.
Lee is raising money for several charities, including the Sick Kids Foundation, Children's Wish Canada, and Kids Help Phone.
For example, the Kids Help Phone, that is a resource I personally used when I was in grade 7, and I found that super helpful. So now, looking back, I would love to give back and try to help one of the causes that really helped me when I was growing up.
Lee has become a familiar face for many transit riders in the downtown.
When you exit a train or come up the stairs and you hear this beautiful playing, it lifts the heart.
So far, she has raised more than $20,000 for charities.
When I dropped a few coin in her case, that's when I read that she wasn't getting the money for herself. She was doing it for others. So beautiful, so really, truly beautiful.
Lee performs on her free time, rotating at subway stations across the city, on average 2 days a week.
After work, on the weekends, on holidays, I think I've really found my true calling in trying to give back to the communities.
Because to Lee, it's a stage to share her music and spread awareness about important causes. Mike Walker, CTV News.
And Anastasia, we're looking ahead to a pretty rainy week.
That's right, Mitsumi. Earlier this afternoon, we checked in with Environment Canada, and already we had received roughly 20 millimeters of rain in the downtown Montreal area. And here's what we're looking at tonight. Mainly cloudy skies, an expected low of 7 degrees for the evening, and then some rain coming in tomorrow around midday. So our wake-up temperature is looking like 6 degrees, and then at about 11 a.m. Is when we are seeing that rain starting. Expect to see up to another 17 millimeters coming in tomorrow. That's as we move up to an expected high of 9 degrees for the day, and then even more rain is on its way after that. So on Wednesday, we've got roughly 2 millimeters, possibly as much as 14 on Thursday. And that is sort of the pattern for the week. Mitsumi?
At least it's not snow. And that's it for us. Have a good evening. Stay well. Good night.